Romulus space station.
Run.
When you have a 50-year-old franchise that has literally been put on theatrical ice, many people would have moved on. Ridley Scott directed the original in 1979 to critical and audience praise. 7 years later, James Cameron was not only able to direct one of the best sequels of all time, but created a masterpiece in his own right. Many sequels and years later enter director Fede Alvarez, who was tasked with creating a sequel that would not only appeal to the hardcore fans, but also bring in new fans alike. The question is, would his Alien film be more like Alien and Aliens, or will it frustrate fans into cryosleep like AVP Requiem? Let's get down to brass tacks. In this video, and by the way, I recently did a Why You Hate Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, Dawn of the Dead 2004, The Fly, and many more. Check them out if you haven't already, or if you need some fun and a good horror discussion, check them out again. It's not going to hurt, I promise.
Well, fuck your shit up, boy.
Also, if you would like to personally help me decide new episodes and much more while supporting this channel, join our channel membership by clicking the join button next to the subscribe button. It's a member perk for our movie fanatics level. You know you're a movie fanatic. We all are. So as I was saying, I'm going to go over my thoughts for Alien Romulus and also some of the things that I think people will be talking about for a long time, creating debate and so forth. So get ready to travel to a deserted space station. Make sure your artificial person isn't getting bullied. Use X-ray lights to see if your chest cavity is clear, and get away from those friendly neighborhood facehuggers. Let's talk about Alien Romulus. Do you love it or do you hate it? Number 1. Director love. This is a film that Fede Alvarez had a lot of passion for, and he is a huge fan of the franchise. He's been quoted many times talking about his love for all of the Alien films, even the ones that aren't that great. And you know, there are a couple that aren't that great. I'm looking at you, AVPR.
And you blew it! You blew it!
Actually, it's hard to look at you because it's so damn dark. You can barely see a lot of the film, but it is what it is. I have a lot of fun with this franchise as well. I love all of the films, and there are a couple of them that I think are absolute classics, and I'm not just talking about Alien and Aliens. The cinematography for Romulus is beautiful. This film looks like it is made to be in between the time period of Alien and Aliens. The story is set 20 years after the events of Alien, and you can see it by the world building. Seeing it in the theater on the big screen, I could just really appreciate all the things that he put into this film. We had so much practical work, we had miniatures, and we had just things that reminded you of that time period between 1979 and 1986 with the first two films. This one fits seamlessly in between those two films. But not only that, you also have the music cues, which was amazing. They took cues from Jerry Goldsmith and James Horner. Here's the thing that I also appreciated about Fede Alvarez and his direction. You could tell that he wanted to bring the franchise back to that sense of horror, which we really haven't seen in decades.
Inconceivable!
It's been a long time, because after Alien in 1979, when James Cameron did the sequel, he really ramped up the action. And so, although it has horror elements because you're dealing with the xenomorph, you have so much more action that is injected into this sci-fi franchise. And the films after that really leaned more into the action side of things and less into the horror. But this film, it feels like Fede really went back to the horror elements. You have so many scenes where there's tension and there are things that are moving in the shadows, and it's not so much that there are jump scares that are happening every couple of minutes, but there's the thought of what could happen, what is lurking around the corner. And these were things and also emotions that I hadn't felt since I had seen the original Alien, which, by the way, I had just seen the 45th anniversary of the film in theaters before Romulus, of course. And I'm telling you, there is this strong connective tissue between these two films. I mean, there are callbacks to Aliens as well, and also for Alien 3 and Resurrection and Prometheus and Covenant. And actually, I thought there were some things that even were connected to the AVP films, to be quite honest. But this film has an identity of its own and it winks and nods, but I think it was organic. It felt like it worked. It wasn't just nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. Number two, the world building. Now, when you're fitting a movie into this universe in between the events of Alien and Aliens, the first thing that I always wondered was what were we going to get as far as world building? What were we going to see from Weyland-Yutani and the events that had previously happened? And of course, what might happen after this film heading into the future, which would go into the Aliens timeline. And I'm really happy to say that this film, more than any other film, in my opinion, for the Alien franchise, really gave you a sense of world building because it's not just characters on a ship fighting aliens. You really saw their backgrounds, you saw what they do in life, you get a sense of their plight, you get a sense of Weyland-Yutani being a horrible corporation. I mean, this was basically a situation where you had these characters that were part of slave labor, this shady corporation pulling the strings in the background. It's really what caused the characters to want to leave the planet, and that sets in motion the events of the whole film. So I think that the world building was really well done, and it gives you a sense of what is going on in this time period, because if you look back at Alien, all we know is what we see on the ship from the characters. They talk about some things, but we don't see any of that. And even in Aliens, again, we get a little bit of Weyland-Yutani when they're questioning Ripley, and also the idea of how she's, doing her work on the docks and stuff like that. But you don't get a sense of the world too much. And even when you have the scene at Hadley's Hope, those miners and so forth, you only get a small glimpse. I think what this film did really well is it gave you much more into the world that these characters live in. It was fascinating. I enjoyed so much of it. I found myself glued to the screen because I was trying to capture all the things that were being thrown out. Number three, the characters. The characters in this film were very good. I was really cautious and concerned about how well these characters would be in this film because, again, there were a lot of talk about, well, they're very young characters, so why would we have a film where all of the characters are skewing a younger age? And plus, there are no big stars in this film. I mean, we've got some great actors and actresses that hopefully will get their chance to become much bigger stars, but at this point, there were no big stars in it. You've got Kaylee Spaney, who plays Rain Carradine, and she's our lead, and she has a synthetic or artificial person, as he likes to be called, Andy, played by David Johnson, who, let me just say this right now, and I'm being so honest, David Johnson killed it in this film. Andy was amazing. And you're talking about a franchise that has had a lot of androids, and when whether you're talking about Ash or Bishop or Call or David, it's awesome to think that we can still have new characters, these new synthetics who are absolutely amazing. And Andy was like really layered, because he has this demeanor where he's basically Rain's brother. He was reprogrammed by Rain's father to be like a surrogate brother, to take care of her, look after her, and all of that type of stuff. So they have an interesting relationship, and he's very awkward. He likes to try to tell jokes, and it was a really interesting character trait for a robot. And throughout the movie, there are moments where his personality changes through different plot points in the film. I won't get into that. I'm going to stay away from spoilers. But it was really cool to see him go through all of that, and it was a great performance. It really was. I mean, him and Kaylee Spaney were fantastic in this role. And I think when you talk about Kaylee Spaney, back to her, I think she did a hell of a job with her character. You really were invested in her. And of course, she's the lead. So you want to be able to follow her story in this film. We had a few other characters. We had Kay, who was played by Isabella Merced. She was pretty good in the film. She had some great scenes in the film, and she's the friend of Rain. And then you also had Tyler, played by Archie Rennell, who is Kay's brother and also Rain's ex-boyfriend. So there was this idea of the family situation, and you had the other two actors as well, and they were fine, for what they were. Although Bjorn, he was an asshole, and it's like I kind of hate that, when you have a character in the movie who's just a jerk, and he was like a jerk for no reason. It's kind of like all right. Every time he opened his mouth, I wanted him to shut it. But there were great moments through this film for all of these characters. Let me just say that. Number 4, the callbacks controversy. There are going to be some fans of the Alien films. I think they're going to love this movie. And there are going to be some fans of the Alien franchise that are not going to love this movie. And I think there's a couple of reasons. I think number 1, you have a film that is set in the past. This is in between Alien and Aliens. So it doesn't move the story forward, really. You know what I'm saying? It's set in a certain time position in the franchise. I personally think it was a great idea, because now you can reintroduce a new audience to the Alien films and hopefully move forward. I mean, we've seen this many times before, most notably with Saw X, how they did that movie in between Saw 1 and Saw 2. There are a lot of callbacks in this film, and I think that for some fans, they're not going to be super into that. I've heard some of the controversy online about it. Here's my thought about that. I think that when you have a film in a franchise, especially a legacy franchise, and this franchise has been around for damn near 50 years, you have to make a lot of choices. And one of the choices you have to make is, how similar to the other films will this be? Will it feel like it's in the same lane, or will it feel like it's something totally different and you're taking chances and being experimental? Now, here's the thing that I kind of get frustrated about. When we had Prometheus come out and then Alien Covenant, Ridley Scott was trying to go in a different direction, and there were a lot of fans that were frustrated by that. They weren't big fans of it, and those two films, although they made some money, I don't think they really moved the franchise forward. They definitely put the franchise on ice for a little while. And I really wanted to see what he was going to do after Covenant. I'm going to be honest. I really enjoyed those films. There were issues with them for sure, but I really did enjoy them. And interestingly enough, if I do a ranking of the franchise, and you guys let me know if you want to see that, I think you'd be surprised where I put those two films. People were upset about those choices that were experimental and, taking big swings. Well, now you have a film that I guess you could say it plays it safe. Number 1, because it's very much in the same tones of the first two films, which are universally thought of as the best in the franchise. It has to kind of do that, though, because of the time period that the film takes place in, right? But if playing it safe is bad and experimenting is bad, what do we want as a fan base? What do we want?
And you blew it! You blew it!
Personally speaking, I have no issue with either as long as it's executed well. And I think this film, universally, I hope and I would believe that people would see that this film is executed very well. The direction, the cinematography, the music, they had some great characters, they had some great action scenes, they had some great tension, had great horror scenes. I mean, this film to me is the way the Alien comes back, just like Prey did that for the Predator franchise. I really enjoyed this film. When we were done watching it in the theater, I was like, man, I want to see this again. And I really do want to see it again, because there was so much going on. Even in the first 10 minutes of the film, I literally at one point realized that my eyes were glued to the screen. I was that invested in what's going on, because there was a lot of visual stuff going on. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this. These characters, the setup, going to this space station, this Romulus space station, Romulus Remus, and hoping to get away from their horrible lives. They're basically slaves to Weyland-Yutani. And so they find that this space station comes into the orbit of their planet and it's deserted. Now they realize that the only way that they can escape this world and they want to go to this other colony that's like 9 years away is that they need cryostasis chambers. And they're figuring, well, we can get them from the Romulus space station. And so this is the whole setup for the film, because they go there not knowing that there was experiments done on the xenomorph. Somehow the xenomorph from the original Alien, they were able to use the DNA, extract the DNA from it and all of that type of stuff. So this is where you get the whole idea of the face huggers and so forth. And so they go to the space station not knowing what's going to happen. Of course, we as the audience, we know the story beats that is probably going to happen. And I got to tell you that Fede Alvarez did a hell of a job with this film. I enjoyed so many of the scenes. I think there are a lot of scenes in this film that are going to be talked about for a long time. And there is a huge, and there's no spoilers to this, but there is a huge scene that happens in the film that a lot of people are talking about. If you're planning to watch this movie, I would say stay away from spoilers, because when it happened, first of all, it was tense. It was tense. There was a lot of blood. There was a lot of gore. And in a franchise like this, to stand out even a little bit like this film did, that's a tall task, right? So this thing that happened was like, wow. As soon as it was there were people that were in the audience, myself included, like, what? Oh, there was a lot of audible gasp and oohs and ahs in the crowd. So that was really cool to see. And I think that it's a great film. I really enjoyed it a lot. And I'm going to say that I love it. I love it. It was great. I want to see it again. And I'm hoping that it continues to do well. It's had a pretty good opening weekend with the global box office, and I'm hoping that it continues to do well. It's a very good film, and it should bring the Alien franchise back. So at the end of the day, Alien Romulus did what it needed to do, and I enjoyed it so much. But what do you think? Have you seen Alien Romulus? Are you a fan of the Alien franchise? Do you want to talk more Romulus details and also rank the franchise together? Let me know down in the comment section down below. If you haven't hit the like button for more content, please do. If you're not subscribed to the Night Watch Zone, this is the time to do it. Do it and become part of this fantastic movie community where you'll never love and talk about movies the same. If you like this video, check out some of my other videos and all my other content here, and I'll see you there. And as always, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.